Good evening. It is Monday, December 14th. This is the Guilford Board of Education, our regular meeting for the month of December. The first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance, so I invite you to join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Go Grizzlies.
All right. All right. So we have one set of minutes to approve, minutes from November 9th, 2020. Is there a motion to approve those minutes? All right, Moira, second. Mrs. Peck, excellent. Any comments or corrections? Go ahead, Ted.
A small one on page 4 under 9.3. The motion was seconded. I don't believe it was Mrs. Sands. I think it was me.
Yes, I noticed that as well. Terrific. Any other corrections? I simply wanted to note as I was reading these and was reminded of the student representative report. For each of the schools, I was underlining things: participating in a program that expresses gratitude, successful food drive, a collage for veterans, participating in a drive for animal shelters by collecting sneakers, a walkathon for leukemia, students collected socks for veterans. It was just an impressive thing to see, and I continue to be so proud and appreciative of the emphasis within our schools, by our staff, by our administrators on kind of reaching out to others and doing things for others. And I know some of these things are student initiated as well, so I don't want to take away from them. But as I read through the list, it was just something I wanted to note. All right, so we've had a first and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Excellent. All right. So we have approved those minutes. Next on the agenda, we would normally have a public forum. I again encourage all community members to please reach out at any point and contact Dr. Freeman, myself, or any board member with a question, with a concern, with a suggestion. We are all here and ready to receive those communications. Number 5, review and approval of expenditures for the month. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Best.
Katie?
Yes.
Just a quick thing on communications. I just wanted to bring to the board's attention that I did in fact receive 5 text messages and emails combined regarding the Girls Swim program.
Okay.
So do you want me to read the names and addresses for the record, or how would you like that to be represented in lieu of public forum?
You can either do that now. We also have number 6 under communications. We can do that there as well. And if you wanted, if those individuals wanted their names noted as supporters of that, we can certainly do that at that time. Thank you for asking. That's perfect. Perfect. Yep.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Balistraci. Our expenditures for the month of November were $5,798,453.33. The expenditures and encumbrances were 38.43% of the budget, and that compares to 35.67% in the prior year of November. Driving the increase, I should note, is our expenditures around COVID-related expenses. We did discuss this in the Operations Committee meeting. I think it bears mentioning that we have spent about $1.3 million in COVID-related expenses, And we are actively attempting to recoup some of those costs through grants and have received or will soon receive $600,000 in grants to offset some of those costs. And Mrs. Trudeau is seeking potentially more offset in costs through the FEMA program. Our revenue for November was $557 from Medicaid. Therefore, the total warrants for this month were $3,336,072.64. We did have a large, extensive meeting earlier. We discussed the warrants and specifics around expenditures. But if there's any questions from any member of the board, be happy to discuss any questions that somebody has.
Any questions?
I can't see everybody on my screen, but I'm not seeing any questions.
No. So
Okay.
Dr. Best, is that a motion to approve those financials for the month of November?
Exactly. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the November expenses.
All right, and is there a second? Mr. Sands, I see a second. Any further comments? All in favor? Aye. All righty. Terrific. Okay, thank you so much. So communications, Mrs. Peck, you had some to share.
Yes, so I've heard from a handful of community members supporting the swim program and requesting that the board consider adding $7,886 to the budget for next year to allow the swim program. That'll cover approximately 50% of their overall cost. I believe this is specifically for the women's program, and the women's program has approximately 20 girls who are now, I guess we've got some folks in the community who can't swim because they can't afford to. So that was the petition that they've sent forward to me. And I heard directly from Joe Simone from 985 Durham Road, Keith Torello at 240 Landon's Way, Karen Moriarty, 72 Spruce Hill Drive, Peter Bortolini at 90 Cherry Street, and Nate Jacobson, 1470 Long Hill Road.
Terrific. Okay, so that's great. So, and I believe we also received an email for Mr. Jacobson, unless that's one of the ones that you're noting.
Yep, he sent us, I think he sent it to all of us. He sent us a spreadsheet outlining the costs for the girls swim program and outlining where the ask for the 7,886 comes from.
Okay.
And also noting that they pay about the same out of pocket. So that would really only be about half of their overall budget.
Okay, terrific. Are there other communications any board members have received that they want to note? Mrs. Sullivan.
Just very quickly, I had a verbal communication from a neighbor who just wanted me to pass along to Dr. Freeman, the administration and the board, how happy they were with the way COVID and learning has been going on since school started back in September.
Terrific. I saw someone else's hand raised. Oh, go ahead, Myra.
No, it was just to reiterate Kristen's communication. Similar names, but a few others that are parents of affiliated swimmers, both boys and girls, but in support of what Kristen outlined. I'm just hearing from it a lot this year again, and it would be nice to make, put that on record. That, like I said, some of the names are similar to who Kristen referenced, but then there were others who, just texted or through a friend let me know that they'd like to see it brought up again in the budget conversations this year.
Terrific. Other communications? Oh, go ahead, Mr. Sands.
Well, I had a couple of calls from constituents who, on the subject of these, of the women's swim team, that reminded me that the pay for play on this particular sport is pretty high. And while this is a new team and relatively new team, Um, I have to say that I share with some of the constituents some feeling of being a little uncomfortable that we've got an attractive and successful program like this that has such a high cost to the parents of participating. It's really not our style. And
Well, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
go ahead. No, that's it.
No, I thought, okay. So certainly that is something we can consider. We will be getting a budget update tonight from Dr. Freeman, and we'll be continuing those discussions fairly intensely with the numerous groups and amongst ourselves over the next several months. Terrific. I did want to take an opportunity. This is not necessarily a new communication. It is a communication since we last met at a regular meeting. And that is just to acknowledge that on Friday, November 13th, Dr. Paul Freeman was named Superintendent of the Year by the Connecticut Association of Public School Superintendents. As this is our first regular meeting since that time, I just wanted to say a few words on behalf of the board in recognition of this award. Dr. Freeman, you are a knowledgeable instructional leader. You are committed to enhancing the instructional understanding and capabilities of the staff and administration in Guilford, but also committed to your own continuous learning. Under your leadership, the district continues to leverage cutting-edge educational resources and learnings through affiliations with organizations such as the Institute for Learning at the University of Pittsburgh. This commitment to excellence in education is partnered with a prioritization of student mental health and wellness. Under your leadership, this focus not only elevates awareness of students' emotional needs, but informs practice throughout the district. You have hired effective, high-quality administrators. You invest in relationships with the board, within the Guilford community, and within the state that serve our school district well. Under your leadership, Guilford Public Schools finds itself repeatedly ranked among the top school systems in the state. A state-of-the-art high school building, which opened its doors to students in the fall of 2015, reflects your continuous work with the high school building committee to align building design with an instructional vision. Our high school became an international baccalaureate world school in 2017, offering students IB course and diploma opportunities and enhancing instruction throughout the building with its global approach. In 2019, Guilford High School was recognized as the National Blue Ribbon High School. And these are just a few of the many, many ways in which your expertise and dedication to our community have shown themselves to our great benefit and to the benefits of students and our community. So I just wanted to say congratulations. And on behalf of the board, thank you for your dedicated work to our district.
Thank you very much. That was unnecessary, but very much appreciated. Thank you.
Terrific. Next, we have student representatives. I see Jerry and Julia with us tonight. I don't know who wants to go first, but wonderful to have you, and we look forward to hearing your reports.
I can go first.
Wonderful, Julia.
To start with the high school, my only topic is the recent mascot vote that was taking place between, I think, everyone from Baldwin up to the high school. So it was the decision between the top 5 choices of Hawks, the Eagles, the Seahawks, the Grizzlies, and the Griffins. And we ultimately decided to go with the Grizzlies. So from what I hear around school, everyone's really excited about that. It was kind of my first choice and a lot of my friends, so we're happy to represent that. And then moving on to Adams, the 7th graders are working on reading A Long Walk to Water and learning about the history of the conditions of South Sudan. And the 8th graders are working on their Civil War debate speeches. To celebrate Computer Science Week, students have been working on coding, and the National Junior Honor Society hosted a gift card drive for grocery stores instead of their regular holiday drive, and they collected hundreds of dollars. And then the peer helpers finished their holiday toy and pet food drive. And they want to thank the PTO for providing a wonderful breakfast to the faculty and staff this month. But the biggest news of all is that the Walk for Chloe fundraiser was able to raise over $3,500 for Chloe, who's battling leukemia, and she's a 7th grader. For A.W. Cox, this month they focused on gratitude for their Choose Love theme. Scarlett Lewis joined the all-school meeting about Choose Love and shared the importance of gratitude. They sent cards to soldiers and healthcare workers to show their appreciation. And they did an hour of code where they learned to do some computer programming while also sending holiday cards to local senior living facilities. And then finally, Lakes raised over $1,500 in grocery store gift cards. And they have a Spirit Week this week where they'll wear winter hats, their Lions Pride t-shirts, have crazy hair, and wear comfy clothes.
Terrific, thank you. Go ahead,
Also
Jerry.
also at the high school, this week is Unity Week, and we have a couple of Spirit Days. Today was our Jersey Day, where we wore sports jerseys to school. Tomorrow will be our Decades Day, where we wear clothes that feature past decades. On Wednesday, which is our virtual day, it's Cozy Blanket Day, and students are encouraged to submit pictures of their cozy blankets. Thursday is Class Colors Day. Freshmen are wearing white, sophomores are wearing blue, juniors are wearing pink, and seniors are wearing green. On Friday, it is Ugly Holiday Sweaters Day. And next Monday, it is also Class Colors Day. Next Tuesday is also Ugly Holiday Sweaters Day. And Wednesday concludes our Unity Spirit Week with Cozy Blanket Day Part 2. And finally, at the high school, the Guilford debate team had a varsity tournament, and they're the champions in the Connecticut Debate Association tournament this past Saturday. At Baldwin Middle School, as part of their Veterans Day activities, students participated in a service project collecting hand sanitizer, masks, and socks for veteran groups. And the Baldwin community collected several boxes full of these items, which are being donated to agencies that serve area veterans. On Friday, November 20th, they also partnered with a Guilford Free Library in the Lena Ferguson Literary Festival to host a virtual author visit. The author was nationally acclaimed children's author Jennifer Holm, who has published both print and graphic novels. The author held 2 Zoom sessions, one for 5th grade students and one for 6th graders. And during the sessions, she discussed the writing process, the inspiration for her writing, and her partnership with her brother who illustrates the graphic novels. The students had the opportunity to ask questions about what it's like to be an author, book publishing, and how long it takes to write a novel. And it was a wonderful experience for the students. Baldwin also had the Hour of Code activities to highlight computer science. And the students really enjoyed these activities, and many are continuing to explore the resources and activities during their daily enrichment period. And next for Calvin Leet, the student council activities are currently being planned as well. And on Thursday, they had a Spirit Day too, which was Pajama Day. And they also welcomed a friendly donation towards the Guilford Cares / Son Strong Foundation to support the elderly in town that can't go to the rec center due to COVID for meals and socialization. And they will also rotate 4th grade representatives to go to PTO meetings to share updates from the student council. As for the classes, in kindergarten, they are working on writing on personal narratives, telling and showing who, what, where, and a feeling, as well as writing sentences. In 1st grade, in reading, students are progressing through their new reading curriculum resources, which includes EL Foundation Skills Block. And at this time, students are improving encoding and decoding skills that are focused on short vowels, blends, and diagraphs. In math, they are working on increasing their fact fluency. So students are continuing to secure the knowledge of adding, subtracting, and comparing numbers using single and double digits. And they're also using number talks and writing to learn activities, which deepen their mathematical understanding and how to look at these problems from different perspectives. In second grade, for literacy, they are on the fairy tale unit where they identify characteristics of a fairy tale and write their own version of one. In math, they are practicing addition and subtraction from a number line. And in social studies, they are working on the unit of change over time, looking at technology, communication in schools. In third grade literacy, they've been working with nonfiction texts, which includes students looking at nonfiction features both as a reader and as a writer. They have been using everything that they learned to research an ocean animal, and they are now writing a nonfiction piece about their ocean animal. And in math, they are finishing up an addition and subtraction unit using larger numbers. They are exposed to many different strategies to add and subtract these numbers, and they are figuring out the most efficient way to do so. In fourth grade literacy, they have finished up their unit about Chinese immigration, and they worked on looking at different genres of books written about this topic. The students' culminating task was to write an opinion piece about one of the texts they found most helpful in learning about this time. In next unit this week, they are going to be focusing on the global issue of child labor. In math, they are currently learning about fractions, where they are working on identifying equivalent fractions, comparing and ordering fractions. And lastly, they'll be ending the unit looking at decimals and how to relate them to fractions. And finally, for music, they've been practicing listening for and representing high and low pitches, practicing listening for and representing pitch direction and contour, and many other musical skills that they'll be able to develop later on. And finally, at Melissa Jones, on November 11th, Veterans Day, the Melissa Jones School community shared a Padlet honoring veterans. And while they could not come together for their annual assembly, they were still able to recognize the important day and the people that have served our country. Second grade students learned to identify the rhythm of 4 fast sounds on one beat, practiced 2 meter by adding bar lines to a piece of music, and they also experienced opera. Third grade students have also been working on their ocean animal unit and are looking forward to share their published work. The school also had a few spirit days to bring some joy to the month of December, which includes Flannel Friday. And the PTO also held a holiday light scavenger hunt, leading students, staff, and their families throughout North Guilford in search of things like Melissa Jones written in the lights in a window. Thank you.
Wonderful. That is a terrific report from both of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you both.
And I will say I have already ordered my Guilford Grizzlies long sleeve shirt, so I am awaiting its delivery in the mail. Terrific. So as I've said to, well, let me stop. Does anyone have any questions for our student representatives? No. Okay, terrific. Thank you so much. As I say every time, you are welcome to stay, but we certainly understand that you likely have homework and other commitments, so you are also free to go. Appreciate again both of your time and effort here tonight, and I hope you have a wonderful holiday break.
Thank you.
Thank you. You too.
All right, Dr. Freeman, we are at the part of the agenda that is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Bellis-Tracy. I do want to begin with a brief COVID-19 update. I do want to share that at this point, district-wide, we have, as of last Friday, we were at a point where we had recognized 43 positive student cases across the district and 10 positive adult cases across the staff. I do want to note, however, those numbers increased at a slower rate last week than they had, in fact, in the week prior. We added 5 new student cases last week. The week prior to that, we had added 12. And we added 2 new adult cases last week. The week prior to that, we had added 5 to our rolling count. So we know that numbers are rising precipitously nationally. We know that numbers are rising in Connecticut. We know that numbers are rising here locally in Guilford and along the shoreline. But in our schools, we in fact saw a little bit of a leveling off in this past week. I also want to note that conversations continuing at the national level, at the state level, and here locally in Guilford, while we're recognizing increasing numbers, we continue to not see spread that is occurring in schools. So I want to make that clear again. Although we continue to notify the community of cases in the schools, as soon as we become aware of a case, we quarantine around that case. But in all of the cases that we've experienced in schools, once we have become aware and once we notify and once we quarantine, we've yet to see a second case be identified within any of those quarantines. I continue to believe that the mitigating strategies that we're employing in the schools, continuing with the hybrid model 7 through 12, continuing with cohorting in place K through 6, attempting to keep distance as often and whenever possible, using the plexiglass dividers that we have in place throughout the district, and most importantly, masking. While we know that we have positive cases coming into our schools, we are not recognizing our schools as spreaders within the community of those positive cases. In fact, as you follow the research, you are hearing at the state and national level that schools may be some of the safest places that our students spend time because of the supervision that we provide and because of the strict mitigating strategies that we have in place. That being said, as of today, we still have one class at Melissa Jones that is learning in a distance fashion because of a quarantine, and we have an entire 7th grade team at Adams that is in distance learning because of an impact quarantining has had on our staff. I want to continue to remind the community that while we are becoming less and less likely to be closing the schools because of concerns about spread or because of medical concerns, it remains likely that at some point, the mitigating strategies that we put in place, specifically quarantining, and as the quarantining affects adults, that we may continue to have shifts to distance learning as a result of staffing. That is why we have one entire team at Adams that is in a distance learning structure currently. It's why we needed to place all of Adams into a distance learning structure around the Thanksgiving holiday. We continue to be working to provide subs and to mitigate those impacts whenever possible. But I do want to remind the community that we appreciate the partnership. When families do have positive cases, they are calling us. We are hearing from our parents and from our families before we're receiving positive reports from the state. That allows us to respond immediately, and I believe that's part of what's contributing to that. We know that these quarantines and the shift to distance learning, whether it's done for individuals, for classes, for teams, or for whole schools, has an impact on the families that have to make that move to distance learning. But it is that response that I believe is allowing us to keep the schools in whole or in Maine open for all of our students. And we know that schools are good for students. And so we will continue to monitor. We do anticipate continued closures, partial closures, as we continue to move through what will still be a difficult winter. But I want to continue to let the community know that we're watching this daily. We are confident that our schools remain safe and healthy places, and we continue to appreciate the partnership that we're experiencing from parents and community members around us as we make these difficult decisions. We are following developments at the state level carefully around vaccine distribution. We do not have a lot of specific information about vaccine distribution to teachers or to school employees. At this point, we're not specifically sure if it's going to be distributed only to certified teachers or to all school employees in this first tier of distributions. But we've been meeting weekly with local health officials, fire officials, and police officials. We continue to be monitoring this closely at the state level, and we will do whatever it takes to make sure that that distribution happens effectively and immediately when that becomes available to us at the school level. We'll continue to keep an eye on this. We will continue to monitor, and we'll continue to make decisions on a sort of rolling week to week or day-to-day basis around these concerns. But as of today, staffing looks better than it did a week ago. We have fewer students and staff in quarantine today than we did a week ago. And we have most of our schools open and functioning today. And Dr. Balistraci, that's the COVID update. I can answer questions here or roll through a couple other items, or whichever you prefer.
Yeah, I think we can take questions. I also just want to mention one thing, I was talking to a close friend who happens to be a staff member at Guilford High School, who was telling me just how very, very impressed she is with the custodial staff, how hard they're working, how much they are constantly cleaning. And so I just wanted to take the opportunity to shout out to our custodial staff that compliment, that it is being noticed. Their hard work is definitely being noticed.
Custodial staff, food service work, and particularly our nursing staff. We've got people that are, I know that every week I laud the teachers and the principals for their efforts, but clerical support, custodial support, food service providers, security, parking personnel, and particularly the nurses and nurses aides that are in the school. Everybody is really doing yeoman's work this year to do everything we can to keep school available to the degree possible to our kids here in Guilford.
That's terrific.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Does anybody have questions for Dr. Freeman, comments around the COVID update? All right, I'm hearing none. So Dr. Freeman, why don't you go on to the budget update, which is the next item.
Yep, and budget update, I'll be able to keep brief. The headline is that although we had a delayed start, the budget build is back on track and on time for delivery to you. We have a meeting later this week to look at some of our final decisions, final big decisions. We've been meeting around medical expenditures. We've met with all the area heads and principals. On Wednesday of this week, we'll begin to pull together our final budget. We will then be spending much of the holiday break putting together the presentation materials and books for all of you, with a presentation of our administrative draft to this board and to the community on January 11th. And then the board has time to deliberate that budget, and we are scheduled for public comment on that draft on January 25th and 26th before the board takes final action and approves your final budget. To some of the comments that were shared earlier tonight, when we held public comment on this budget, we did hear comments around both the boys and the girls swim team, around art staffing at the elementary level. There was both encouragement to create a position for a diversity officer in the district, and there were also cautions that were shared around spending in the area of social justice instruction or teaching. We will be addressing each of those as the budget is shared with you on January 11th. So in our administrative draft, as I share that with you, I'll be prepared to speak to each of those items. And as we talk about the swim team concerns that have been expressed and shared, not just this year, but over multiple years, we'll comment broadly on any of the sports that include a pay-for-play component so that we can put all of those into context between and among the various sports that require a parental contribution. But again, good news is that we're back on track, and we will have that ready for presentation to this board and the community on January 11th.
Thank you. Any comments, questions, discussion points on the budget from my colleagues? Mr. Sands.
With respect to the pay for play on athletics, I would hope this year again we could have some sort of an analysis, some sort of a schedule that showed across the various sports what the levels are, so that we could understand where the hurdles of participation are a little too high.
It's exactly the sort of context we were going to provide for you, Mr. Sands. Yep, where we'll be happy to give you that.
Okay, good.
Go ahead, Kristen.
On that same vein, Dr. Freeman, will you also be presenting to us what the budgeted sports cost, like what does it cost to play soccer in Guilford or any of the other teams? Like, I'd like to see kind of how that compares with the pay to play sports as well.
So do you mean the overall expenditure that we experience, or the cost to the family of participation in that sport?
To the family. So like,
yep.
You know, if you play a sport that's already
yep.
in the budget and has been for years, what is your out of pocket if you have any?
Yep, that's exactly the kind of context that I'll try to provide for you so that you can come as close as you can to an apple to apple comparison. Yep.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments, thoughts?
And Dr. Belstracy, I do have a
Yeah.
couple other items that aren't listed on the agenda that I'd like to speak to, if I may.
Absolutely. So let me just then end this discussion because it sounds like there aren't further comments, with just a reminder to the board that we are meeting with the Board of Finance at 6:30 on Monday, the 21st. This is actually officially a meeting of the Operations Committee. Although I think traditionally we have all shown up for that important and informative exchange with the Board of Finance. So I will turn it back over to you, Dr. Freeman.
Yeah, so Julia stole my thunder a little bit, but I did want to comment a little bit on the mascot. So last week we did share, our Principal Chaff and Athletic Director Jarvis shared with the community an announcement that the students in grades 5 through 12 had finalized their decision and had selected the Grizzlies as the new Guilford High School mascot. It was shared in the letter, but I did want to remind everybody here, I am really very proud of the process that Principal Chaff and Athletic Director Jarvis put together around this. Following this board's decision to discontinue the Indian moniker, they put together a process that for most of the months of December and January invited all of the community, in fact, anybody who had the email address, to share any suggestions they might have for a mascot moving forward. While that process was taking place, this board, through the policy subcommittee and then as a whole board, was deliberating a policy that would guide future decisions around mascots. That open call for suggestions drew more than 300 communications. Wasn't 300 unique suggestions. A lot of people had the same or similar ideas, but over 300 individual communications into that email mailbox that we set up with enthusiastic suggestions and recommendations for a mascot moving forward. When we closed that inbox, the high school stood up a representative committee that was more than 20 in number, that included students and parents and teachers and administrators who vetted and reviewed those suggestions that came in. They created a list of 14 nominations, or not 14 candidates. And in that primary, we invited students in grades 5 through 12 to select their 5 favorites from among the list of 14 and to rank order those favorites. That whittled us down to a list of only 5 finalists. Those 5 finalists went back out to the same students in grade 5 through 12 who were asked once again to rank order those 5 finalists, and Grizzlies came out as the selection. We thought that the rank ordering was really important because we didn't want to have simply a vote for favorites. That might, again, set up a situation where 51% of the students had one that they loved and 49% of the student population wasn't in favor of it. So by being able to rank order your choices, we were able to see which finalists the student body really liked and which ones were at the bottom of that list. Grizzlies won any way that you measure it. So when we scored the rankings, Grizzlies won with the highest overall score of 6,061 points to the next closest choice that had 5,300. If you just looked at #1 votes, Grizzlies brought in the highest number of #1 votes with 613 compared to 428 to the next highest candidate. If you looked at first and second choices combined, Grizzlies had the highest number of first and second choices combined with almost 1,000 votes out of the 2,000 students who were invited to participate. So we know that Grizzlies was the favorite of a number of students, like Julia, who shared that it was her favorite choice. But we also know that there was a large number of students who ranked it as their second or third choice, which meant even though it wasn't their first choice, that they could be enthusiastic about it and that they could live with that choice. And so we're really happy with the process that we ran, and we felt that the community and then the committee, but particularly the students, had a real opportunity. Current and future Guilford High School students had a real opportunity to make this decision. I also want to share with the board, and Dr. Balistraci mentioned this already, we have already released our first spiritware store where we have invited community members to purchase t-shirts or hoodies or polo shirts that have Guilford Grizzlies written on them, and it's in words only at this point. And I do want to note for the community that 15% of any of those purchases is going towards the cost of rebranding our high school and our high school athletic teams. Additionally, we are not planning on stopping with just a name. We do plan on working up an image and a logo to go with us. And I'm really pleased to announce to the board tonight that earlier today, Lori Hahn and I met with Noemi Kearns, who is a local business owner in town, as well as a parent of students in the Guilford schools, as well as a recognized graphic designer and artist in the community. Noemi has been responsible for the granite medallion that we see at the entrance of the new Guilford High School. She was responsible for the G with the feather on it image that was designed. And Noemi has offered her services at no cost to the Guilford schools to help us to design and to rebrand the school moving forward. I think more importantly, Noemi has asked if she can work transparently and with students moving forward. Tomorrow, Lori Hahn and I will be contacting all of the art teachers in the district and offering them, again, an email location where students who are interested in this process can share their visual thinking, their visual ideas around an image for a Grizzly moving forward, that we will share with Noemi to inform and inspire her thinking as she goes through this process. She has also volunteered as we move through this process to come back into the schools and to speak in art classes and to talk to students about how the process moved forward and how their ideas and suggestions informed the direction in which the district moved. Noemi has also offered to work with us around future fundraising campaigns. In addition to being a local business owner and artist, she has also taught graphic design and art at the University of Connecticut, has raised significant funds at the University of Connecticut, and again wants to help us through the branding to offset the expense of remarketing and rebranding the high school under this new mascot. Noemi has also talked about working particularly closely with high school students who may have an interest in art and design and marketing moving forward. And since her studio is right here local in town, there's an opportunity for things like capstone projects to take place there as well. So we are excited. Oh, and for timeline, we're hoping that by early February, we have imagery to go along with the name and that we will be able to begin, again, offering spiritware and putting together a schedule to begin rebranding at the high school, which would include repainting the gym floor, swapping out some uniforms for athletic teams at the high school level, and again, working with Noemi to help raise funds that would offset that cost. I do want to note that community members have already asked about contributing to offsetting those costs. So again, the money raised from the spiritware will help to offset those costs, and any community member that wants to make a contribution for that is of course welcome to do so, and we will make sure that the monies go in the appropriate direction. The last piece that I want to mention is, and again, it's one of the most, it's one of the most exciting parts of the conversation to me. While students are getting excited about the Grizzlies, while community members are asking about where they can find spiritware and how they can be supportive, when we talked with Naomi about the idea of fundraising, there's actually some concern that selling the spiritware might raise monies that are actually over and above the cost of reuniforming our athletic teams at the high school. What we plan on doing in that instance is that if there are additional monies raised, we want those monies to be directed towards our continuing partnership with the Acamont project, so that any money raised over and above what's needed to rebrand the high school athletic teams as the Grizzlies would then be pushed back into the cause of looking at how we address our Native and Indigenous history here in and around Guilford, and remember, as we moved away from the Indian, there were real legitimate concerns shared about the fact that we were stepping away from the history of Guilford or hiding from that history. We want to make sure that as we shift to the Grizzly, we don't stop recognizing and honoring that heritage here in Guilford, and that we continue to look at ways that we address that in our history curriculum and in our community. And we've got great partners available in the Accomack project, and we will continue to do that work. And if selling T-shirts with the Grizzly logo on it can offset the costs of doing that, I think that is a nice synergy that we can capitalize upon. So again, I wanted to build on Julia's report. We're happy about the Grizzly. I'm seeing enormous enthusiasm among the student body around it. I'm really excited to have Noemi on board to help move this work forward, and particularly pleased that we're going to turn it into a learning opportunity for students and not simply slap a Grizzly face on a jersey and move forward. And if it benefits the history curriculum and the way that we honor the Native American and Indigenous history here in Guilford, then all the better.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Any questions, comments on that?
I just want to reiterate, Paul, how happy I am to hear that Noemi's going to be leading that charge. She's a friend, but she's also tremendous talent. And since I've known her, she's constantly giving back to the community and the larger community. So I think she's the perfect person to be kind of leading that part of the, it was a question I got a lot this past weekend from parents, who's going to do the logo? What's it going to look like? So I secretly was hoping that Noemi would be involved. So that's wonderful news.
Well, we've had great experience with her. She's done wonderful work for us in the past. And the fact that she is willing to donate her time and the time of her small business right here in Guilford, it's a great local resource to have. Not just that she's doing it pro bono, but that she wants to encourage students and make a learning opportunity out of this for our student body. Happy to have her on board and can't appreciate the offer any more than we do.
That's wonderful. Terrific.
Dr. Balstraci, I just have one last reminder. Some time ago, I think it was a week, maybe a week and a half ago, we did send out a notice to the community that in cases of inclement weather this year, that we will consider the possibility of shifting the district into a distance learning day that would likely follow a delayed opening schedule rather than necessarily closing schools. So I just want to call out for the community that we are anticipating some inclement weather Wednesday evening into Thursday morning. And the choices in front of us are a little more complicated than they have been in past years. So I do want to just note that parents should be on the lookout for communications going into Wednesday evening or even in the very early hours of Thursday morning. But with the weather that's rolling in, we could be looking at a school closing. We could be looking at a delayed opening, or now, because this year is this year, we could be looking at a shift to a distance learning platform for all students who would otherwise attend in person on Thursday, and be able to keep buses off the roads, be able to be safe, but not lose a day of learning that would then have to be rescheduled at the end of the calendar year in June. So a slightly complicated palette of choices this year. The decision to go to distance learning or not is going to be impacted on how severe we think that damage might be and power losses might be. If we're experiencing significant power outages throughout the community, shifting to distance learning for the day isn't going to make sense and might lead to a traditional closing. If we've got bad travel conditions but don't have widespread power outages, that's a situation in which we might see a shift to a full distance day and be safe without losing a day that needs to be rescheduled in June. Again, I'm just going to have to ask the community to stay tuned and pay attention, look for communications from Lori Hahn on that Wednesday evening and early Thursday morning time.
All right, thank you. Very helpful information.
And that would conclude my report.
All right. So we will go on to the board agenda, 9.1, to act on personnel items. So we have before us a request to ratify the appointment of the following teachers: Shauna Clifford, Leet Elementary School speech and language pathologist, and Liam Norton to Adams Middle School for social studies. Is there a motion to ratify the appointments of these teachers? Dr. Best, Mr. Galino, a second. Any comments, questions? All right, all in favor? Aye. Terrific. I see everyone's hands. Okay, 9.2, to act on the school calendar drafts. We did receive in our last regular Board of Ed meet 2 drafts of the calendar. I believe the distinct difference is that one starts, draft number 1 has the first day of school September 2nd, which is prior to Labor Day in 2021. And the second has a start on Wednesday, September 8th, which is after Labor Day. It is in fact a Wednesday because of Rosh Hashanah on September 7th. Dr. Freeman, do you want to comment on these 2 choices?
That is the only difference in the two, is the start date, and it impacts the ending of school only by 2 days. A targeted end date of June 17th on a Friday is still an early end date, and there's a certain logic to ending on a Friday. And so this is really the board's decision. I think that the leadership team might be leaning in favor of draft number 2, but it is really a toss-up, and the decision is certainly open to the board. I will say that I have not received a lot of public comment on this after sharing them at your last meeting. I don't know if board members have received more input than I have, but I haven't received a lot of community input on the differentiation here.
I'm interested. Okay, so what we're hearing from you, and I think we heard this from you, Dr. Freeman, at the last meeting, is that there was perhaps a slight preference for draft number 2, which just for those, the viewing public who doesn't have this in front of them necessarily, is the draft in which school would start after Labor Day on September 8th and end on Friday, June 17th. That is, of course, without snow days or other unexpected closings. I have not received any communication, but other board members may have, or may have other comments they want to share at this time, or their own questions or opinions.
I have not received any comments about either calendar, but I would like to make a motion that we adopt draft number 2.
The only,
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, so I saw a motion and a second from Mr. Sands.
Yeah.
I was just going to add that while we do have the option of providing distance learning days on otherwise possible snow days for this year, we are not yet sure if that opportunity is going to be available to us next year. I don't think it should affect the board's decision, but just wanted to note that whatever end date we agree to, we cannot begin to consider that a firm end date. There's still always the possibility of emergency closure because of power outages, or we may lose the ability to schedule distance learning days in future years. It's available to us this year, but we don't know if that will become permanent or not.
Okay. So there is a motion and a second for draft number 2. So I'm going to open it for further conversation. I'm having trouble speaking. Other thoughts, comments from other board members? Apparently, this is not a particularly difficult decision, or at least
I think you guys have the more popular choice.
Right. So, so I've heard a motion and a second for draft number 2. All in favor of draft number 2? I'm seeing unanimous support for draft number 2. So that is the vote on the school calendar for next year. 9.3, to act on the Board of Ed meeting calendar draft. So we have 2 things. This is the first, and then we're going to vote on the operations, curriculum, instruction, assessment, and policy committee meeting calendar. But first, this again was a receive item in our last meeting, and identifies the regular meeting and workshop meeting schedule for 2021. As is typical, most of these meetings occur on Monday evenings, except when there is a holiday on that Monday, or in the case of the budget public forums that Dr. Freeman has already noted, which will happen on Monday and Tuesday at the end of January. Is there a motion to accept the Board of Education meeting schedule? Dr. Hirsch, I see a motion, and Mr. Del Ventura, a second. Any comments, questions, concerns? All right, all in favor? All righty, so we have then adopted the Board of Ed meeting calendar. 9.4 again is to act on the 2021 Board of Ed committee calendar. So that is again the Operations Committee, Curriculum Instruction Assessment Committee, and Policy Committee meeting schedule. Again, for the viewing public, most of these also occur on Mondays, and they occur prior to either our regular meeting or our workshop meetings. Is there a motion to adopt this calendar schedule? Mrs. Sullivan, and then Ms. Rader, second. Any further comment? All in favor? Aye. All righty, terrific. So that is adopted.
Thank you.
So we're now actually on to number 10 on the agenda, reports on various committees. Does the Policy Committee have any report this evening?
Nothing new to report. Our next meeting is scheduled for February. If something occurs that we need to have a special meeting prior to that, we will, with regards possibly to anything COVID related, but otherwise we'll be meeting in February.
Terrific. All right, thank you. Is there any further comment on the operation from the Operations Committee? I know you met earlier this evening.
Yes, just a quick summary. The food service team continues to do excellent work. The financial report for that area is improving, but we're still at a loss. On the health insurance, the October claims were higher than September, but they continue to be lower than budget. We're not sure when the trend back towards the budget or even above budget numbers will occur, but we're keeping our eye on that one. And we reviewed fairly extensively some proposed bonding projects, which we will comment on later when they get more firmed up. But it looks like there's several projects that we're just going to have to do this year to keep the buildings in good shape. That would conclude my report, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Sands. The Curriculum Instruction Assessment Committee, is there any report from that committee?
We last met in October, so there's no current information. We will be meeting again in January, on January 25th, to further discussion of race and social justice issues and how they're handled in our district. Our focus in January will be on culturally responsive teaching methods.
Terrific. All right. 10.4, liaisons to town committees. Are there any reports from any town committees? Mr. Sands, go ahead.
The pension committee, the news continues to be positive. The pension has performed well this year. The meeting that will occur this coming Wednesday, we will review the actuarials report for on a couple of issues. One, a proposal to once again change the discount rate that we use, and secondly, to review projected required contributions, and so we'll see how how that turns out. But overall, the pension has done well this year.
Terrific. And thank you for continuing to attend those meetings for us. Liaison to the Learn Board of Directors.
Sure. I actually was unable to attend this month's meeting, but I did receive a summary that I wanted to share with you guys that I thought was interesting about what the other districts are doing in terms of hybrid, full-time, or fully remote. So Learn is a regional education system. It covers Guilford through Stonington. There are 27 districts that are under the Learn jurisdiction. And out of those 27, 6 are fully in person, 3 are fully remote, and the remaining 18 are doing something similar to what we are doing. So there's some sort of hybrid model going on in the vast majority of the other school systems. So it was just interesting, I thought, to kind of see the overall summary. I didn't have any idea really where all the other districts stood. So I wanted to share that info with you guys. And I have a copy of that graph. If you guys want me to send it around, I'd be happy to.
Terrific. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right. That concludes reports from committees. Again, this would be a time where I get to remind the community, if you have questions, you should please feel free to reach out to Dr. Freeman, to myself, or to any Board of Ed member. We are happy to respond. The remaining agenda item for tonight is an executive session on contract negotiations. The Board of Education will not be taking any votes following this executive session. So we will be ending the public live stream of this meeting at this time, so that the board again can go into that executive session, and then again come out of the executive session without any further Board of Ed business. So I am going to ask for a motion to enter executive session. Mrs. Sullivan, Dr. Best, a second. All those in favor? Aye. So we're going to then thank all of the community who joined us tonight. We are going to thank our district leadership team for joining as well. And of course, thank you for your continued work, time, effort, and expertise in the way that benefits our children and students tremendously. And then the Board of Ed will remain for that executive session.